talking about, I guess I'll call it the Caitlin Clark effect.
Yes.
Talk about what you've seen over the past couple of months on national television, and as a coach, how do you see that?
It's like momentum that's been building over the last couple of years with Caitlin Clark, but this year especially, it's just been crazy. It's like you turn on the TV on SportsCenter or something, and there's just as much coverage about women's college basketball as there is any other sport, and it's been cool. It's been fun. It's definitely created more hype around the sport, more excitement. Yeah, go ahead.
Traditionally, girls basketball at the youth level has kind of lagged behind the boys. How do you hope this kind of helps that?
Yeah, for sure. It just creates more interest in the sport. Kids nowadays have a lot of competition. There's softball, there's volleyball, there's track and field. There's a lot of different sports soccer that grab kids' attention. Obviously, I'm a basketball coach, so I always want to, promote the sport I love. And this excitement that's happened around Caitlin Clark is definitely creating more and more momentum for young kids that want to play basketball.
I mean, you have to see this, right, in your girls who look up to these girls. Tell me about what you see day to day.
They just talk about it more. They watch it on TV more. In the past, maybe not as much. You didn't hear about them talking about a college game that they're watching or a WNBA game that they're watching, but there's more excitement in the locker room talking about, these kids that they look up to, or these women that they look up to, I should say.
There's always been a higher level of achievement for these girls to be able to have. What does it mean now to really have these even more iconic people, or people that at least are being recognized more?
Yeah, it's cool. I'll be with my buddies, grown men, and we're talking about the women's college game from the night before. That's different for me personally. But yeah, these girls all look up to them for sure. They have rivalries just within our team. Half of our team is Kaitlin, half of our team is Paige. So they're always talking smack back and forth about which one's better, which is fun. So that kind of stuff really never happened before.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see women's basketball in a couple years from now? How do you see this kind of trend going? Where?
Hopefully it's going to continue to grow. We're going to have more and more recognizable faces, more and more people that want to come to the games, more and more big crowds, more and more endorsement deals for girls that make it, if that makes sense. And so it should trickle down all the way down to summer ball, youth sports, all that.
In fact, tell me about how you describe what's happened over the last couple of months. One of the highest watched games ever, LSU, Iowa, all of that stuff. How do you describe it?
Women's basketball wasn't that big. It was kind of just overlooked, and the men's was just blowing up with all the good players. And then Kaitlin and Paige and all the good players in women's kind of came over and took over women's, and now everyone is talking about it. I mean, I didn't really hear about the men's very much this year, and the women's just kind of blew up. It was just crazy.
How do you view them as a role model, these ladies?
They just kind of are to themselves. They don't really talk about how they did as an individual. They talk about how they did as a team, and I just look up to them because that's how I am, and I don't like to talk about myself. And they just are very confident, and they know that they're good, but they don't usually just say that.
Is there anyone specifically that you kind of watch as a player to role model after,
I like Kaitlin, me personally, but I mean, they're all good, but I like Kaitlin the best just because she has swag to her, but she's not very oh, look at me, but you can tell as her game, her game says it for her.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see the game in a couple of years? Obviously, you're a freshman. Hope you have some big dreams, but where do you see the game in a couple of years?
It's going to be hard for the people coming up into college to keep that ongoing because they're just so good. But I think that since now everyone's looking, they have a bigger thing to look up to, so I feel like it'll be maybe not as big, but still pretty big.
The Caitlin Clark effect. You're a big fan of basketball. How do you describe that?
It's just crazy how a girl who was never noticed in high school, when she comes to college and just balls out, and it's crazy.
How do you view her as somebody who plays the game and is younger, but you obviously want to get to where she's at in some respect one day?
I view her as my idol, honestly, because I just love how she plays. I love how she has so much confidence, and she talks about her team and she doesn't talk about herself.
That's awesome. How do you describe what's over the past couple of months we've seen these things? I just said the LSU-Iowa game was the most watched game other than the Super Bowl, I think it was. Obviously, the Indiana Fever, their social media, Instagram followers doubled overnight. How do you describe that?
It's how everybody's nobody was watching WNBA games. They were watching NBA games. But now that Caitlin Clark came from college, and it's crazy how she just blew up and how she made other teams blow up.
Mm-hmm. One of my personal favorites is Paige Becker's UConn fan. Sorry. Is there anyone else that you're a big fan of and is kind of changing the game right now in your mind?
Haley Van Lith. I really like Haley Van Lith's game. She's she can swish three-pointers, and she's really mature, like, for her age.
So you're in 5th grade. Where do you see the game in a couple years from now with this trend?
I'm hoping that I'll end up being like Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers and all that